What is up, everyone? Welcome back after a long hiatus. I am so sorry it's taken 2 full months or maybe even more to get another episode of the podcast out. If you've been following along on the YouTube channel with all the stuff I've been putting out there, or even just follow along on Instagram, you know that the last couple months have been absolutely bonkers. And I suppose if you've only been listening to the podcast, I'll summarize the last couple months of that insanity. My friend Paul Barney, who puts on the Alpine Fair show in Helen, Georgia, announced the dates for the show probably at the end of March, early April. I feel like it was pretty close to the date of the show. I think it was with only like a little over a month to go. And I decided to call my friend Ross Couples, who has a pretty extensive Volkswagen collection. And I've purchased cars from him in the past. My Derby, a Mark II Volkswagen GT, a Golf GT, diesel Mark I Rabbit, a handful of cars. And he had a German imported Mark II F Polo Coupe. And that car was in the States for a couple years, and he had bought it, I think maybe last year, maybe 2019. And didn't do anything with it, just put it in the building that he keeps most of his cars in. And we had kind of talked about me possibly purchasing that car at some point in the future. But without all the cars I had on deck, or all the projects I had unfinished on deck, I never really pulled the trigger because there was no point in taking something like that on. So when Paul announced the dates for Alpine Fair, I immediately thought, man, that would be amazing to take that car on and try to build suspension, because there are some off the shelf. There's like 2 companies that build like a bolt-in air strut kit for that car. And if you know anything about the Polos, you know that they've got a similar front end to like the Audi 4000s, the B1 and B2 chassis cars, and even the Foxes. And so the knuckle and hub assembly, well, the knuckle is basically one piece to the strut assembly. So there's not a lot of off-the-shelf coilover or air suspension options available. So I've built suspension coilovers using a Mark I and Mark II conversion setup on my old Volkswagen and my Mark 1.5 Derby that I had. And with the 2F Polo, very similar. So it was kind of familiar territory. So I called Ross and said, hey man, there's just under 2 months before Alpine Fair. Are you still interested in selling the 2F Polo? And he said, yep. So I pulled the trigger and called my good friends at Bag Riders and said, hey, I've got this crazy idea. I want to put together a Polo coupe in time for Alpine Fair. So they worked with me on the car. We got Airlift Performance hardware and management, 3P, got all that stuff shipped right out, and I started building. And once I realized how tight of a timeline I was really working with, I realized I probably wasn't going to be able to find the wheels that I wanted or needed in time, in the right specs and the right offsets and the right diameter, et cetera, et cetera. And those wheels kind of specifically were 80s Motorsport BBS wheels. I wanted to find like a 15-inch 4x100 set of RSs, or maybe another set of E76s, which I had on my Lada back a few years ago. And once I realized that I probably didn't have enough time to do the right set of wheels on the car, I contacted my friend Jason Whipple at Rotiform, who is one of the originators, one of the guys who started Rotiform. And I've known him for a while, but we've never worked together on a project. Indeed, I've never had Rotiforms on any of my cars. So I pitched the overall idea of the project to him. And to my surprise, Rotiform was willing to come on board for the project too. So super, super grateful to both Bag Riders and Rotiform. And we were able to custom build a 2-piece welded set of their LHRs, which look like 1980s BBS Motorsport wheels. And I've always liked that wheel because of that fact. So we were able to get some wheels built and done and in my hand in time for the show. The wheels worked out perfectly. The suspension fought me tooth and nail. Lots of design and fabrication work. Utilized my father's CNC plasma machine for cutting a few parts out. And long story short, you can go back through all the YouTube episodes and watch all this. I mean, I somehow was putting an episode out a day while trying to get the car done in time while trying to keep commission work coming in so I could continue to pay my bills. And it was just super, super difficult. And I'm glad now that I documented the whole build so you can look back on all those episodes. I grinded real hard, not just on the car itself, but trying to film, edit, and upload all the videos on top of all that. So yeah, so the car got done in time. Still some checklist stuff to do on the car, but basically got it done enough to be aesthetically finished and be able to drive around and whatnot. So Corey and I loaded the car up and we headed to Alpine Fair in Helen, Georgia. We spent just under a week there, and it was awesome because Corey had never been to Helen and I hadn't really ever had a chance to go to Helen and relax. All the previous trips I've made there were like fly by night, get there Saturday morning. It's a 23 or 24 hour drive each way. It was just always chaos to get down there for the SOWO shows earlier, 2012 through 2014, and then Alpine Vag Fair, which was Paul's first show in Helen in 2019. So we went down for quite a while, and it was awesome because the weather was beautiful, and it was awesome to have the car down there to drive around. I hadn't even driven the car once until we got to Helen. I went up and down the driveway in it after I finished the suspension and had the wheels on it the night we put it in the trailer and then headed to Georgia the next morning. I'd never even been in second gear in the car before I pulled it apart. So I basically drove it out of Ross's building, put it on my trailer, pulled it into my shop, and then tore the thing to pieces. So it was that much of a time crunch. I didn't even get a chance to drive the car or enjoy it or anything like that, or shake it down and figure out what it really needed. So huge thanks to so many people, or a good handful of people that came on board and really helped out on that project. Bag Riders, Rotiform, ECS Tuning came in. They helped out with a lot of maintenance parts that I needed for the car. My friend Steve Paris in Wales helped facilitate and ship a lot of the Euro-specific drivetrain and ignition, basically under the hood parts that were Polo specific that we didn't get in any Golfs or Rabbits or anything like that here in America. So I needed to order some stuff from Germany, and some of those companies wouldn't ship worldwide. So they shipped from Germany to England, and then England to me via Steve Paris. My other friend, Steve Lafayette, super thankful for him coming in clutch because he painted my bumpers for me. And normally the bumpers on the 2F Polo, at least the spec model that I have, were just all black textured plastic, top to bottom. And they looked super cheap. And they looked like some sort of like aftermarket bumper after the car had been in like a rear end collision or something, or had been in a fender bender. And it just looked like something super cheap that wasn't OEM. So I had Steve paint the lowers of the front and rear bumpers to basically look like it was a small bumper car. So I had the black textured plastic bumper bar, and then underneath that was paint matched to underneath the door cladding around the car. So there's basically like continuity to the look of the car, where if you looked at the side of the car, you had paint, then textured plastic door cladding, and then paint underneath that. So now the front and rear also simulated that same, or emulated that same overall aesthetic. So Steve came through, super thankful for him coming in and doing that work. And yeah, I mean, it was a photo finish for sure. Now, after Alpine Fair, things got even crazier. And I don't know where to begin with the next bit of news. This episode overall is just going to be a quick, short episode, but it's basically getting you caught up to what on earth is going on in my life right now. And man, so even on the podcast, I've talked about wanting to move to Chattanooga. I haven't been too quiet about that. I've been pretty vocal publicly about my longing to move back to Tennessee, but that I've really liked Chattanooga. I lived in Nashville 9 years ago, and that really never felt like home. I was only there for 6 or 7 months, and then I came home, and it just didn't pan out. Well, Chattanooga over the last 9 years has really kind of spoken to me. I've spent more time down there. I'm down there numerous times a year now. Good group of people down there. The geography reminds me of home. Chattanooga is basically in the Smoky Mountains, so you've got mountainous terrain around you. You can go hike if you want. You can go for a windy drive. You don't have to drive too far outside of Chattanooga, where you're in the mountains, kind of in quiet neighborhoods and whatnot, or just quiet areas that don't even have neighborhoods. So that on top of the fact that it's cheaper to live down there than it is in the Northeast, and also the fact that you don't have to store your cars for 6 months out of the year. And yes, I know it snows. I've actually been in Chattanooga when it snowed before, but it's nothing, literally nothing compared to the Northeast. So I've been thinking about it. 2020, I thought was going to be the year I did it. It wasn't. The pandemic came along instead. And so I had to reevaluate what I was going to do, being self-employed and ultimately working in an industry that creates merchandise for businesses. Didn't do that well last year because a lot of companies weren't spending money or their budgets on making merchandise because they were in the middle of furloughing employees and trying to figure out what on earth they were going to do to survive last year. So yeah, so last year was a bit tough. So I put a move on the back burner, not knowing what was going to happen. And so here we are now, 2021. Was kind of thinking about it more. When I went down to Riverside in March in Chattanooga, my good friend Andy Bailey reached out to me and said, hey, if you're still interested in moving to Chattanooga, because he'd heard me say this on the podcast or on Instagram or whatever. He said, his fiance or his girlfriend, I'm sure soon to be fiance from the sound of it, but they are kind of interested in looking for another house. At least back in March they were. And he said, I think you'd really be interested in my house and we'd be willing to rent it to you or sell it to you or both, rent to own or whatever. You should probably come by and take a look at it when you're here in March for Riverside. So I did just that. And it's really quite a setup. It's a 3-bedroom house atop a 1,500 square foot shop with high ceilings and concrete enough under it for lifts and ultimately 3 bays. And I thought, man, this would be incredible to live in a 1,500 square foot house with an equal footprint shop underneath it in an area where it doesn't snow, where it's cheaper to rent or own a house like that than it is up here. And so I really got thinking about it. And that was basically where we left it because they were just interested in possibly getting another house. Well, as we fast forward through us communicating for a couple months and trying to figure different things out, they got a mortgage in place for a new house. And so that was the first call. Said, hey, we got approved for a second mortgage. The house hunt is on. Are you still interested in coming down? So I had a quick catch of my breath and I said, yep, let's do it. But there's no timeline because now they were just going to simply be searching for a house. Well, 2 days after that, he called me and said, hey, I'm really sorry if this is super last second or late notice, but we just put an offer in on a house. And I thought, oh my gosh, we're actually doing this right now. But if anybody knows how the market has been all spring, they got outbid. And then basically, I'd say on average, once a week after that for the last 2 months, that was basically the overall pattern. They'd find a house that they really wanted. They'd make an offer. Some they'd even offer over asking price to obviously lock it in, and they would be getting grossly outbid and nothing worked out. So as you can imagine, that takes the wind out of your sails. That really kind of defeats you. And I'm sure it really kind of killed their motivation to search for houses. And, they're in a house now. And it's like, man, every time we venture out to try to search for something or put our best foot forward and make an offer on something, we get outbid. And more often than not, those houses wouldn't even close and they'd end up back on the market. And it was just this vicious cycle of defeat and failure. So again, taking the next step forward up until where we are now, 3 days ago now, I think it was about 3 days ago from when I'm recording this, at least, Andy texted me and said, hey, we put another offer in on a house, just so you know. And literally his vibe was like, well, we put in an offer on another one. Like literally the vibe was, we're not going to get it, but just letting you know that we put an offer in. I said, all right, praying it works out. And he said, yeah, we should know by tomorrow by noon. And the next morning at like 7:30 in the morning, he texted me and said, we got the house, time to roll. So as we speak now, it's mid-June and kind of the beginning of June. As I'm recording this, it's the 10th. Yeah, so it's almost mid-June. And I am now moving to Chattanooga, Tennessee in August. Now, there's obviously a few logistics that are still in the air. They still need to do home inspection and then ultimately close on the house, but we're 99% there. 95%, but maybe 99%. We're close enough there where I'm actually boxing things up. Like we're going, we're doing it. So I made an announcement in the previous episode on YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube, it's literally the last video I just posted. And basically, when I filmed that episode, I didn't know that they hadn't yet gotten their offer accepted. All I knew was that they'd put an offer in, and I decided, well, I'll just publicly say that I'm more than likely moving to Chattanooga this summer, because I assumed that they would probably land on something if they stayed at it consistently through the summer. But there's another, I don't want to bunny trail too hard or skip around too hard, but there was another reason why I decided to publicly say that I was moving. And that reason was ultimately because I'm moving out of my shop. Now, I decided to move out of my new shop before I knew I was moving to Chattanooga in August. And all of this stuff kind of lines up. It sounds kind of scattered as I'm talking about it, I suppose, but it all lines up. So basically, knowing that I was going to be moving sooner than later, more than likely, I decided to be proactive and talk to my landlord at my shop. He agreed to go to a month-to-month lease on the unit because I gave him my situation where I said, listen, when my friends get an offer accepted on a house, I'm basically going to have 30 days to move to Chattanooga. So I'd really like to not be locked into this unit until next February if that happens. And he had no problems. Said, no problem at all. We'll go to a month-to-month lease. No problems. So we did that. And within a couple weeks, I decided, you know what? June 1st is coming up. Maybe this will be the last month I'm in there. Because April and May, I spent most of my time working on the Polo, I didn't generate a lot of work. Indeed, I pushed a lot of work aside to focus on the Polo. So when June 1st came around, it was a serious kick in the shin financially. I'm like, oh my goodness, that shop space is an extra $1,500 a month that I've never really had to spend before because I've always worked part-time out of my father's shop for nothing. So this was more than what I pay a month here at the house. So with that serious financial kick, I thought, I'll be proactive. It'll be shooting myself in the foot if I get out of the shop space and then Andy doesn't find a house until like November or something. And now my cars are sitting outside all summer and fall. But financially, I wanted to be proactive and be ready so all that money could go towards the move that would have normally gone into the unit, which isn't really paying me any money. It's not generating me any money. So got a friend that was willing to go in on the unit July 1st. So my landlord was happy about that. And I thought well, I don't know what the rest of the summer looks like, but at least I'll alleviate that monthly payment. About a week after the 1st of June and knowing that it was going to be my last month in the unit, let me back up. It was Memorial Day weekend. It was right around June 1st. And I was thinking already that June was going to be my last month in the shop. I made a post on Instagram about the Polo because I've been dancing between doing a giveaway for the Polo, like a product giveaway where, however, like every $20 you spend on the web store for products gets you an entry to win the car type deal, or to just straight sell it. And I had a friend in Northern California who was interested in buying the Polo. So on Memorial Day, I made a Facebook post just kind of as like a poll. I posted, do I sell or do I go through with the giveaway and not know what my return is? Hopefully I hit my mark and make enough on the car to make the last 2 months of extreme work worth it. Or it does really, really well. You don't have a crystal ball. And I've never done one of these before, so it's hard for me to gauge my audience or how well one of those will do. Or do I sell the car to a friend in California and drive it cross country and film it for content for the YouTube channel and stuff? And I kind of just wanted to hear what people had to say. And my friend Carl from Airlift, Carl works at Rotiform, and Carl Taylor, and he's one of the Players guys. So basically, Carl Taylor and Jay McTolbridge are the two guys that started Players, and they put on the Players Classic show in England. And Carl lives in Los Angeles with his wife, and now is, if I have this correct, is the marketing manager. I think he's the marketing manager at Rotiform. Well, regardless, I just saw those boys in Helen, Georgia a few weeks prior. like 1 or 2 weeks prior. So Memorial Day, Carl sees this Facebook post, and he's hanging out on his patio drinking a beer, and he thinks that, well, there's a chance he might be driving his car cross country. And he had a bunch of like crazy ideas, and he called me, just straight up called me, and he goes, hey, are you bringing the car cross country? And I said, no, probably not. I was kind of just looking to see what people's reactions would be and which way the majority of people were leaning. He goes, well, it got me thinking nonetheless. And so we started to spitball some like crazy ideas, and not really knowing whether or not if I would be involved in these ideas. We were just spitballing like road trip ideas, like cool content ideas. He knows I've been pushing my YouTube channel pretty hard. So I just assumed that maybe this was just, we were just kind of like having a chat about some like cool trips that might be good ideas in the future. Well, quickly it turned into something pretty crazy. And although we had talked about some logistics of some ideas for trips, I basically got an email at the beginning of this week that basically said, I booked you a one-way flight to LA for the 21st of June. And that's basically all I know. He said, if you choose to accept this challenge, call me when you land. And that's it. So now on June 21st, which is a Monday, I am flying to LAX. And I've called Carl to try to get a little bit of information out of him about this. I've gotten a little bit of info, but I don't really know what to expect. All I know is I have a one-way flight to LAX. I'm more than likely going to meet up with Carl at Rotiform, and I don't know how I'm getting home or when I'm coming home. So there's that. And all I know is it's some sort of challenge, and there's probably going to be clues because we already have some clues. I'm flying to LA one way, and I got to call him when I get there. And that I don't know when I'll be home. So now that June is the last month that I'm in my shop, I don't have until the 1st of July to get all my stuff out. I have until June 21st to get all my stuff out because I'll definitely be gone a week, at least, I'm assuming. If I don't have a flight home, that makes me think I'm going to be driving something home or somehow getting home on the ground maybe, or that's a very realistic possibility. So now, and Carl loves this. I swear these guys want to punish me, or they want to like see me buckle under the stress or something, or that's going to make for good viewing. I mean, that's for sure. But now I have to make sure, regardless of whatever fun challenge or punishing challenge this might be, the realistic point is I have to be out of my unit in the next week and a half now, which is a ton of work because now I'm home from Alpine Volks Fair and I'm catching up on all the commission work I pushed away for a month and a half. So now I'm charging through work, and now I've got to have my shop cleaned out by June 21st, and other things are going on right now too. I mean, as I'm recording this, is Thursday. Tomorrow, the 11th, I'm leaving for Brunswick, Maine with the Polo for Vacationland Vag Fair, which Corey Sterling puts on. And so this week I've been trying to get a bunch of things sorted out on a Polo because I haven't done that long of a drive in the car yet. And Brunswick, Maine is about 3 hours each way. So I'm basically doing a 6-hour round trip driving to Polo this weekend. And so I've been rushing on that. Now that I know I'm like flying to LA on the 21st, I've been like, at night, I've been going over to my unit and just filling my van full of stuff, trying to get that cleaned out. And so on top of all that, I thought like, well, this is before I knew I was going to be moving to Chattanooga in August too, by the way. I just knew now I was leaving the 21st for probably the rest of the month, and I needed to clean my unit out. So I figured out now was a good time to publicly say, I'm getting out of my unit. But then friends of mine would be like, well, why are you getting out of your unit? Well, I'm moving to Chattanooga. And so when I uploaded that video or filmed the video, I didn't realize that the morning I actually went live with that video, I'd get a call or a text from Andy saying, our offer was accepted. Basically in August, you'll be moving here. So now it's real crazy. Yeah, I mean, there's no point in even regurgitating everything I just said to like reiterate what I have on my plate for the next month. At the end of July is Wolfscart, and I really wanted to bring the Polo to that because even if I do the giveaway, I'd like it to be at Wolfscart as like a presentation of the car while the giveaway is live. But with all this stuff on my plate, I've got a few friends that are really seriously interested in the Polo, and now I've got real cold feet because with the amount of stuff on my plate, it's going to be, even though I may not make as much selling the car outright than I possibly would doing the giveaway, it might be worth just selling it outright, taking a quote unquote loss on the car. Not really, but I mean, I guess for the time I have into it, I need to get way more than I've kind of asked for it, just to get it off my plate, bring some money in, get it off my plate, and now I can focus on the move. And there's one less car I have to transport to Chattanooga because there's a few of those. So I'm still trying to figure all that out too. So to recap, Alpine Vag Fair. No, I'm sorry, not Alpine. Vag Fair Vacation Land tomorrow. Then a week goes by. My good friend Kevin Furness is going to be here next week. You saw him if you watched any of the YouTube videos or if you've been listening to the podcast. I can't remember what number episode, but Kevin Furness was on the podcast when I brought the Q45 cross country from LA and I stopped in Vegas to stay with Kevin. Kevin was on the podcast. He's on a tour across America right now in his Tesla Model 3 Performance P100. I can't remember what model, but he's doing a cross country trip doing guest spots at tattoo shops. But he also brought his like professional mobile tattoo studio with him. So he's going to be here after the weekend that I'm gone in Maine and setting up shop here at my house and doing some work on both me, Corey, maybe some other friends, but I think just the two of us, and just hanging out for a few days. So amidst accommodating and hanging out with Kevin, I have to be out of my unit by the end of next week because the following Monday is when I fly to LA. And then I'm gone for God knows how long and how and how I'm getting home. And then after that, it's the 4th of July. And now I've got basically 4 weeks to Wolfscart. And that month will basically be packing everything I have and logistically trying to figure out how I'm going to get everything moved, but also trying to generate as much income and work as possible and chiseling through that. And then August, more than likely, will be the big move. That's what the next 2 months of my life look like. And like I said before, I think Carl Taylor and the Rotiform guys are just grinning ear to ear at the amount of insanity that is now in my face in my life. So that's where we're at. I don't even know where else to go from there. I had some Instagram questions come in. So maybe I'll, I don't even know if I want to touch on some of those yet. Maybe I'll save those for another episode. Oh my goodness. Well, you know what I'll do? I'll go through a few questions that had to do with the move. Because I had a few friends that knew I was going to Chattanooga, but I hadn't publicly mentioned it yet. And I wasn't sure if I was going to answer these questions because I wasn't sure if I was going to publicly say I was going to Chattanooga for sure this summer or not. So let's ask some of those questions. Again, these came in on Instagram. I've been trying to plug my like outlets at the beginning of these episodes, and I always forget. I'd like to have like a structured outline to these podcasts, but I feel like when I hit record, I just start talking. And these ones that I'm recording solo, and I say this every single time that I record one solo, they're so hard. They're so hard. I feel like if I stick this out in the future, I think I'll be much better at this solo. The plan is once I get to Chattanooga, I'll have Mason Gavin and a handful of other friends like within the city that I'm living in, basically, to just be on the podcast at all times. Corey's been on a handful of these, but he lives an hour and 20 minutes away, and we're both still in New Hampshire. And other than Corey, there's really not much else going on here. So that being said, these ones are hard. But going back to Instagram, Instagram is at John, John .Ludwick, Ludwick, and Ludwick's Garage. I've been on that a lot lately too. So these questions came in on my personal Instagram. I put out a Q&A story to see what came in. My friend Alex McGinnis, 09, says, how many trips do you realistically think it's going to take to move everything south? I don't know. Let's back up. Hold on. We're going to come back to that one. Dead Routines asked, do you plan on moving to Tennessee within the next 5 years? I should have looked through these real quick, so we're doing them in order. Yes, I plan on moving to Tennessee within the next 5 months, and not within the next 5 weeks, but pretty close. So the answer to that is yes. So maybe I'll skim through these real quick to see if there's this. Flip Physics Beats asks, going to be at Wolfsgart? Yes, sir. I will be at Wolfsgart, as long as I'm not forced to be moving to Chattanooga before then. I got to answer this one. Hutch757 asks, where's the Lumina content? Man, you got a good memory. I did an Instagram live session with Aiden Templin back maybe 2 months ago now. And I didn't want to publicly talk about it because I've been keeping it quiet for years. But we somehow got talking about oddball vans. And not a lot of people know that I am a freak about weird vans. And there's a van specifically that I have wanted to acquire and body drop / bag / just suspension and wheels for years. I mean, 8 to 10 years maybe. And somehow on the Instagram live session, we got talking about it so much that everybody that had joined in and was like commenting on it, they just started guessing random, like weird oddball vans. And they were all amazing guesses, but nobody got it. And then finally down towards the end, someone finally guessed it. And I agreed, and we talked about it. And that van is a Chevy Lumina or Oldsmobile Silhouette. So basically they were rebranded for both companies. And those, if you don't remember, are literally the shuttle vans. Like the nose goes all the way to a point. The windshield is like 6 feet long and it's at like a 45-degree angle. The whole front, it's like a giant cheese wedge. And I saw a Photoshop of one, an early Photoshop. I mean, not like these like new Photoshops of people like dropping cars on wheels look so good that it looks real. This was like an obvious Photoshop back in like 2010. And it was an old print ad for an Oldsmobile Silhouette shuttle van, and it was slammed. And it didn't even have aftermarket wheels on it. It was still the stock wheels. And it was like the Trans Am looking wheels, like the shower drain looking wheels. And it spoke to me like nothing else had spoken to me before. And I was hooked. And I've got that photo saved somewhere. And we got talking about that on Instagram Live. And it's got to happen. Like I'm hooked. Like I want a black or dark charcoal Lumina or Silhouette van, preferably one that's been sitting in someone's grandmother's garage for years and it's only got like 30 or 40,000 miles on it, and it's a cream puff and it's super nice. And I want to build custom suspension for it and just belly the thing out so bad. One of those things needs to be done. And I never really wanted to talk about it because I knew with all the projects I had on deck, I wasn't going to be able to get to it. And I didn't want to put that vision in so many other people's minds that maybe had never thought of that project before. So now that we've talked about it, I'm glad that some people remember that. And I get a lot of Instagram DMs too of people saying, you know, hey, where's the Lumina content? So hopefully Lumina content soon. Hopefully. All right. Back to trip questions. Here's a good quick one. Ryan Hump 11 says, not a question, but can we please get Aiden back on? Yeah, we'll get Aiden back on. We'll try to do one. Well, Chattanooga's closer to Virginia than New Hampshire is, so I'll probably see him more often than I do now. So we'll definitely get him back on. That was by far, and this was no surprise to me, that was by far the best podcast episode I've done. Well, one, it was the most fun podcast episode I've done, just because all we did was laugh for like 3 hours. But it was the best one. It was like the best downloaded one with the most views. And Aiden's just a hilarious dude. And we have a good time when we tell stories and chat together. So yeah, definitely going to have him back on. So back to Alex McGinnis's question. How many trips do you realistically think it's going to take to move everything south? Now, I've been thinking about this. I've been putting a lot of thought into this because I need to come to a solution before I'm driving my van and trailer back and forth numerous times. Now, on the haul back from Helen, Georgia, from Alpine Volks Fair, I lost overdrive in the van. And I don't know why yet. I haven't had any time or any chance to diagnose it or look at it. I don't know anything about automatic transmissions. I know that in that van, it's the 4L80E, and it's had a recent rebuild. It's recently been out of the van. apparently for a rebuild. Now, I don't have paperwork on that, but it's clear when you look under the van that trans has been out. Like, it's clear. It's definitely been out. And I don't know why, but it's the torque converter is working as it should, and basically it's dropping down through every gear, but once you get into fourth gear, it's not sliding down into overdrive. So essentially, this started happening in Tennessee or North Carolina on the way home, and I had to ultimately haul my trailer home in fourth gear at a pretty high RPM to do barely 65 miles an hour. So correlated to that, my fuel mileage went through the floor too. So that was a real expensive trip. So I need to get that looked at, and I'm praying it's something external, something simple like a relay or a servo, or I don't know. Hopefully, in worst case scenario, hopefully it's just the torque converter and I can just pull the trans and replace that and put it back together. I don't know yet. So that being said, I don't know if my van's got more than one trip left in it. I don't know what the next step is if it goes unchecked. But I think between the van and the 24-foot enclosed trailer, I think I can fit all my stuff. Because there's probably some stuff like some furniture pieces and just some other fixtures that I won't take with me, and I'll just buy new in Tennessee. I'd rather not spend a bunch of money. I know a lot of people end up throwing a bunch of stuff out and just buy everything new when they get to wherever they're going. But I'm going to try to do this as budget friendly as possible. So my friend Brandon, who bought my 1960 Mercedes Fintail, now he bought that car back in 2015. He has a 9-car hauler. Now he hauls professionally. He's got like a double-decker sleeper cab. I think it might be a Kenworth or something, but he's got a road tractor with a double-stacker 9-car trailer. And he actually hauls Volkswagens out of Chattanooga from the Volkswagen plant. But he lives in Pennsylvania, which I think where he's at, it's about 6 hours south of here. So I've been thinking about calling him and being like, what can we do between August and September? And what would it cost to get you up here, even if you had to come up here empty, load up, and get to Chattanooga to time it to where you've got to haul some cars out of Chattanooga? So I've got that in my back pocket right now. I'd really like to talk to him and see if it's possible to get all of my cars down in one go. And worst case, most of my cars, maybe have my father or a friend who wants to help make a trip down, drive like the Q45, and then I drive the van, load it up with all my stuff, and we make one go of it. So to answer Alex's question, I'm hoping I can do it in no more than 2. I'm hoping I can do it in 1, but I got a lot of stuff. The recording studio here, a furnished recording studio, guitar rigs, guitars, full drum kit, the desk, the glass desk in here. I mean, I'd like to take it with me because it's like a $300 desk. I want to save money. If I can fit it, I can. But then the laser shop, the laser machine is the size of, I was going to say the size of my 700, but I think it's bigger than my 700. It's a big machine, and it's got to come apart to go through a man door. So that's going to take up a lot of space. That can't be left here when I ultimately start to lay my head in Chattanooga. That has to go when I decide to go for good, because that thing cannot be unplugged longer than it absolutely has to be, because that's my steady income, if you want to call it steady. So yeah, to answer Alex's question, I'm hoping just 2 trips. If not, we can hopefully make it happen in 1. But that's basically it, guys. I mean, we're a half hour in. That's all this is going to be. I wasn't going to try to drag this out. I'm sure there's plenty of stories I could talk about. I mean, there's plenty of stories just from Helen, Georgia, the Polo itself, but I did document it. So if you guys are just listening to this on iTunes or Spotify or any other just audio streaming platform, go subscribe to the YouTube channel and watch those videos, because I hammered out the videos. It was like every day I was working on the car. The next morning I put another episode out, and it was exhausting, but it really helped dial in my routine for filming, editing, and uploading. And now I feel like a video a week is like a no-brainer. I feel like that's like easy peasy now. And so although that was super stressful for the 6 weeks or maybe 4 weeks that I was doing an episode a day or whatever, That was super, super stressful. I think it helped condition me to easily do one episode a week easily. And that's what I would like to do. I'd like to, at minimum, be doing one episode a week. And I should say at minimum, I'd really like to have an episode put up on the YouTube channel that's like vlog style, like whether or not it's automotive related or what I'm doing, BMX or music or whatever, and also one podcast episode a week. That's really what I want to strive for. And life has just been so crazy that, yeah, this is the first podcast episode in well over 2 months, I think, which is crazy. So I at least wanted to get this up. There's plenty to do yet. I should have been spending the last couple hours we had of daylight here tonight to continue working on the Polo and packing and getting things ready for the 3-day weekend in Maine. But Corey, our friend Ryan, and a couple other people are driving up here tomorrow around noon or 1 before we all caravan out to Maine together. I really like this idea because, again, I haven't driven the Polo really, I don't know, I'd say out of town. Even in Helen, we kind of stuck around the area in Helen. I haven't really done a significant drive in that car yet, so I really wanted to drive out with some friends in safety vehicles, support vehicles. So tomorrow morning is when I got to hammer that out. After this, just as I record this, I'm going to sit down and edit it and hopefully get it up so you guys are hearing this on Friday. I'm going to sit down with Corey Sterling this weekend for a podcast episode. He was on the podcast before. Corey's a madman, no filter, was low-key pretty nervous to have him on the first time. And we went off the rails a couple times, but we kept coming back. And Corey has lived a full lifetime since I saw him last. And he actually told me, he goes, dude, bring your podcast gear because we're gonna sit down and have an honest episode here. And I'm like, oh boy. So I don't know what to expect, but I'm gonna turn the mic on and I'm gonna let him go because it'll be good content. So I gotta get ready for that too. So hopefully you guys will be hearing this on Friday the 11th, and then hopefully you'll hear Corey Sterling's episode at some point next week. I'll probably do another one with Kevin maybe while he's here. We'll definitely get some YouTube episodes up while he's here because we're going to do a bunch of stuff, as well as he's going to do a bunch of tattoo work as well. So that's it, guys. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Rate the podcast. I keep forgetting to say that too. I don't know how this whole thing works. I'm just focusing on the work. I've bought the gear. I turn the gear on. I make sure I have the content to put into the gear. But I forget about how everything works. I forget that there's like a rating system on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and to subscribe to the YouTube channel, to like, comment, and subscribe. Air quotes here for everybody listening. I don't have that whole thing down packed because I feel so, I don't want to say disingenuous, but I feel so animated and like fake when I say that kind of stuff. But it does really help. And when I put out a video and it gets a lot of comments and people start commenting more and there's discussion in the video, I do notice that the video does better. So I'm super, super grateful for that. I know a lot of you guys have been chomping at the bit to see more content on the Euro 635 CSI BMW. My plan is, because I'm sure some of you guys have these questions, my plan is to bring it to Chattanooga. It's not going to be the first car I bring because that car is an ambitious project. I'm going to take the Century Corvair 700, the Q45, the Polo I'd like to have gone before then, but the Sixer will be coming at some point. It'll be coming down because I want to start that project sooner than later. And I know that'll be a great goldmine of content because of how rare that car is, especially here in America, and how significant that car is in the lineage of BMW M series cars, because this was basically the predecessor to the M6. And it's a German market car with the Getrag 2655 dogleg gearbox in it. So it's kind of a bucket list car. And it's right up my alley because it's sat for 23 years and it's like rusty and it's very rough around the edges. But content on that car coming soon, hopefully as well. Thank you guys so much for all the support. I mean, seriously, the YouTube has been growing. I really appreciate it. Huge thanks to Wheel Price. I know I didn't do a proper read through for the Wheel Price guys, but if you've been watching YouTube, Kyle, Kirk, and Wally from Wheel Price have come on board to sponsor some of the YouTube episodes, and I'm super, super grateful to those guys. It's a wheel classified app. This is kind of turning into a read-through. Just go to wheelprice.com or search for it on your app store. It's a great, great app. I mean, it's, in my opinion, and this is unbiased to working with these guys, but it's one of the best, fastest growing online community for buying or selling your wheels. It really is. And I know lots of friends who have bought wheels right through the app. I mean, if you buy wheels from some of these Instagram pages, VR wheels, you know how much of a painstaking process that is. And I've done that too. And your wheels show up in cardboard boxes with no packaging, nothing. My work VSX9s that I have on the Century that came from Japan, 1997s, they shipped to me in a cardboard box with nothing else in it. Just a wheel, an 18-inch wheel and an 18 by 18-inch cardboard box with like the lips sticking through the cardboard. Horrendous. Now, obviously, if you purchase wheels through Wheel Price, you know, the seller needs to package them better. But the VR wheels thing, if you guys have purchased wheels from VR, you know that order fulfillment takes forever. And searching is just difficult. So download the app, take a look at it. It's free. Just download it for free and scroll through it. I swear you guys will be stoked on it, because I was too. I was stoked on it before we started talking about working together. So I guess this episode is brought to you by Wheel Price. I should have started the episode with that. But thanks to Rotiform and Bag Riders, ECS Tuning, everybody that helped out on the Polo. Seriously, so grateful for that. I mean, I feel so lucky and so blessed to have been able to work with some of these reputable companies on some of these projects. Bag Riders, time and time again, have come on board with a lot of my projects, and they're local to me. They're only a couple hours away in Vermont. I know that's going to change here pretty soon when I go to Tennessee, but just super grateful for their relationship, and look forward to working with these guys again in the future. But stay hyped. I'm flying to Los Angeles in 2 weeks, in under 2 weeks, one way, and I have no idea how I'm getting home. And all I know, aside from, and I didn't mention this before, aside from not knowing what on earth is awaiting me in LA, all I do know is I'm tasked with filming it and putting it through my YouTube channel. So that being said, come along with me and find out what on earth happens to me when I get to Los Angeles, because I don't know. No idea. But I'm going to film it, and it's going to go through my YouTube channel. So if you're already subscribed to the YouTube channel, or if you're watching this podcast from the channel, hit the subscribe button, because we're about to go on some crazy ride, and it's going to get wild, I think, because the Rotiform guys are crazy. Carl's crazy, and I don't think they have any fear to punish me. So that's it, boys and girls. Thank you for watching. Pray for me on this trip. Pray for me on the move to Chattanooga. This is gonna get wild. All my friends in the South, I can't wait to see you guys this winter. I can't wait to drive the Corvair in January. You know, go meet up with you guys in Chattanooga or Georgia, Atlanta. I'll come down there. Turkey Rod Run, Thanksgiving weekend. I'll be close. I'll bring the Corvair, the 700 down. I'm so excited to be in the Southeast. I'm gonna miss the Northeast in the summer for sure, but boy oh boy am I excited to be down south in the winter months. That's it, guys. Thanks for watching or listening. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Next one will probably be Corey Sterling. Stay tuned. Bye-bye.